Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we are revisiting the Black-White Bat life gain archetype by splashing green for Blech, the Loafing Pest, a 3-mana 3/4, saying whenever we gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each pest, bat, insect, snake, and spider we control. So that includes almost every creature in this deck, and since we have so many separate small life gain triggers, those +1 counters can add up incredibly quickly. So this has been an amazing payoff for the archetype. Then the green splash also allows us to play a few Virulent Emissaries as 1/1s with Death Touch that gain life whenever another creature enters, so this has awesome synergy with the Loafing Pest. And then I'm also trying out one Professor Dellian Fel as a way to gain life with a +2 ability, also gives us a bit more staying power against control, especially in the face of board wipes. At least we'll have a Planeswalker that can draw additional cards or destroy opposing creatures, and the -6 emblem is also pretty easy to get to, and then now whenever we gain life, our opponent loses that much life. No infinite combos, but still just a good value card to have access to. And then Michelangelo's Technique is also a card that's pretty good in a deck with lots of small flying creatures to enable the sneak ability, and then with a lot of powerful 3-drops to find, we can potentially put 2 of those among the top 8 onto the battlefield, including additional copies of the Loafing Pest as well. And then we've got your traditional Black-White Bat archetype otherwise, with Momo discounting our flying creatures by 1 mana, Ruin-Lurker, a life-linking Flier that can also enable some of our life gain synergies, a few Requiting Hexes just to have some cheap interaction for some of the aggro and aura strategies out there, can occasionally blight with it as well, which can also gain life, in turn enabling some of our synergies. And then at 2 mana we've got the Deep-Cavern Bat for some hand disruption on the life-linking bat. The Lifecreed Duo is similar to the Virulent Emissary, but is actually a bat, so can also pick up additional +1 counters. And then the Essence Channeler is another life gain payoff card, picking up +1 counters when we gain life. And we also have some Pain lands in the mana base to reliably give this vigilance and flying if we'd like. And then Sheltered by Ghosts gives us some more removal that we can also maybe get back with our 3-mana Zoraline Cosmos Caller, which is another way to get a lot of small life gain triggers whenever a bat we control attacks. So this also has excellent synergy with the Loafing Pest, and is a way to recur some of our cheaper creatures from the graveyard as well. The Moseo has also been quite impressive. Even though it's not a pest itself, it does generate a pest token, and then we can also gain life when that pest attacks, and at the end of our turn, if we've gained enough life, we can also maybe recur a creature out of our graveyard, so that can also give us a bit more staying power. And then for those grindy matchups, I also like the Darkstar Augur, as it can provide some extra card advantage. Can also maybe offspring it, especially powerful with Momo, since we can already offspring it on turn 3 to make an extra 1/1 token copy, and then we can easily offset the life loss with all our life gain effects, and our curve is also relatively low, so we don't expect to take too much damage off of it. And then the mana base gets to take full advantage of Starting Town to both fix our colors as well as enable the Essence Channeler. The Shocklands can also occasionally enable its abilities, and these also are pretty important to fix our colors. And then the Verge lands can round things out, making sure we have enough untapped white sources on turn 1 to reliably cast Momo and the Ruin-Lurker Bat, since the Bleachbone Verge starts out by only making black mana, so we also have to take that into account. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play, missing green mana. This one's definitely borderline. Without any proactive 1 or 2 mana plays, it's harder to set up black. So I think we mulligan. Alright, this one I can try. And then now, do I keep Sheltered by Ghosts or do I keep the Professor? Sheltered by Ghosts plays well with a duo, can also help enable Blech. Professor still needs a 4th land, but could be decent in the more controlling matchups where maybe Sheltered by Ghosts isn't very effective. So it really boils down to what we think our opponent is playing. Just inspecting their sleeve here, maybe we can get some intel. It does not seem like the sleeve of an aggro deck. So I'm gonna try the Professor, also haven't seen it in action yet. Hallowed Fountain and Momo, so blue-white Momo. So Shelter by Ghost could have been fine, but yeah, could see getting value of the Professor as well. Make that Asper Momo. 1 mana Riddler. They can flicker it here, that would be pretty powerful, but nope, just Dream Beavers. Daydream would be a white sorcery to maybe flicker this and keep it in play. Momo gets in for 3. But now Blech looks pretty good. Probably should still play Starting Town so we can play Prof next turn. Enduring Innocence. Okay. So if I play the Professor, gaining 3 life is sort of tempting since I get to grow my creature some more. Destroying a creature would be the Innocence, but then the Prof can potentially die on the way back.
I can heal you.
Question now, do we attack? Maybe just attack with a 5/6, leave Duo back. If they have removal, they might want to take out the Duo. And then I can hardcast Technique for value. Opponent trumps, okay. Another 1 mana Riddler. This time they might have the mana to flicker it as well. Another Dream Beavers. Yeah, Momo is getting large. Tapped Hallowed Fountain. And into the Floodmaw to bounce the Duo. Right, so the Prof still survives at least. And yeah, I think we gotta go for the Technique. And then wait to gain life so we can maybe get more counters. And yeah, this is a little awkward since we hit 2 more Blechs. But I guess I'll settle for Ruin-Lurker and Duo. Keep on gaining life. Hit you for 7. If they remove my best card, we have a backup. And our opponent's gonna keep on playing Quantum Riddlers. And yeah, there's the flicker effect at long last. Pretty good. I want to avoid trading my creatures since we can make them larger. And Drowner can tap things down. And another Momo just to grow the one in play. Yeah, that's a nice one. So they could force me to chump to keep the Prof alive. Yeah, this is a tough call now. Or I can just eat a Dream Beavers, gain life, in turn growing my team again. I think that's better here. Even though the Prof could have destroyed the Riddler. And then now Duo into Deep-Cavern is a whole bunch more life gain triggers. So yeah, the Lifecreed Duo cannot be underestimated. Especially alongside Blech. And I think we're fine to attack all out. And get another life gain trigger. And our opponent's incredibly far behind. And the Interrupter is not the type of card that shines when you're behind on board. So yeah, the Prof, even though we didn't destroy anything or draw cards with it, still turned out to be pretty effective. Conductor makes sense in a Flicker deck. But yeah, the Drowner's gone, which would have been a good one to Flicker. Probably gonna see the Aven Interrupter into the Floodmaw instead. So they want to Interrupter Blech instead. And am I good to attack first? So they still have all aboard available. Yeah, I guess we force them to tap out here. Interrupt our Blech. And then now, how do I want to attack? I mean, if I attack all out, all my creatures are lethal attacks. They do get a good block on the Deep Cavern. Chump, chump, chump. Probably keep the Conductor alive. I think that's still worth it. And then another Ruin-Lurker isn't bad, since it gives me another way to trigger Blech. Although with a second Scry coming up, I can maybe do better. Definitely don't need Temple Garden. So yeah, opponent's fighting the good fight. They will eventually outcard advantage us. So we do want to try and close out the game as soon as possible. Kaito is not too surprising. We'll tap things down. And then they still have their Aven Interrupter available. So I can start by casting this. Opponent will once again Interrupter it. And then the second one will resolve, triggering off double Duo. And I assume that's game. Right, opponent's got different plans. Flickering Kaito instead, so they can tap another creature down. Yep, that might turn out to be the better play. So now they can't interrupt her. They drew an authority. Okay, I mean, we get to cast this for free and then play a Deep-Cavern Bat afterwards. Could even play another Blech first and then play Deep-Cavern Bat to get even more counters. And don't actually hate it. Take your Interrupter. And now both my creatures are still lethal attackers, so we may as well go face. Force a double chump. So yeah, unless our opponent's packing sweepers, we should finally get there next turn. Get to Scry, looking for maybe a Michelangelo's technique now. Kaito attacks. And they're drawing, so yeah, maybe they've got a board wipe in there somewhere. So far, so good. And they Daydream Kaito, so they can draw again. So they're digging, so they might actually have something.
Your secrets didn't stay hidden for long.
Both in the graveyard. Well, they did not immediately cast Day of Judgment here. And our opponent finally throws in the towel. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have lots of 1-drops, so not the best in terms of getting the discount from Momo. Don't have any life gain payoffs, so this one feels a little too weak. Alright, this one's better. And now Momo can cast a turn 2 Zoraline. Maybe wait on Augur. If we draw another black source, I can play turn 3 with Offspring. So then I either bottom a land, hoping Momo survives, or I get rid of the Emissary. And then if they answer Momo, I can still at least play turn 3 Augur. I think I get rid of a land. Turn 1 mountain. Alright, Momo taken out, so getting rid of the lands might backfire now. So this is it. And the Hexing Squelcher we don't really care about. Okay, so Zoraline seems to be the play now. And then wait a little bit longer on Augur in case we can offspring it. And I think I'm okay trading Emissary. Can maybe get it back with Zoraline next turn as well. Opponent takes the trade. And now I get to scry. Essence Channeler's good if Zoraline lives. If Zoraline gets answered, do I still want to draw it? It's borderline. Think I can do better. If I draw non-black land, I might be a little sad. Another starting town would also enter tapped. So we do have some awkward draws. Ooh, Nova Hellkite gets to ping the Ruin-Lurker. And of course attack for 4. And Deep-Cavern the draw. So I can attack with Zoraline, get back Momo, and then play 1 mana Deep-Cavern Bat. Assuming I tap carefully here. But yeah, just tapping the 2 shock lands will do it. And then next turn we can offspring the Augur with Momo. See, Stallion plus Slickshot. I guess the Stallion's a bit more impactful. Slickshot can block some of my lifelinkers, admittedly. So maybe I actually don't care about the Stallion all that much. Once they get to 5, they can remove the bats. But I'm hoping I can do some damage in the meantime. Alright, Augur with Offspring. And get to grow Momo. And attack. So we're up to 13. Opponent will have to take 2 off Steam Vents to play the Hellkite. And then I imagine they go for Deep-Cavern Bat here. Although Zoraline can also get it back. Whereas Momo has a finality counter, so would get exiled. Luckily we have another one in hand. Stallion attacks. So is her opponent dead on board if I take it? They would go to 1. So not quite dead. Can I die if I take 3? There's a small chance I reveal 2 Michelangelo's techniques, I guess, but pretty unlikely. A double block still seems reasonable to me. We're trading an Augur, but still get to keep the token. And we're happy to play a slightly longer game. Because if our opponent, let's say, draws a Burst Lightning, kicks it, and makes an extra Stallion, things can maybe get out of hand. A Lifecreed Duo and Blech. Alright, Blech should pretty much seal the deal here. We get 3 life gain triggers, and our opponent is very much dead. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, missing green mana. Otherwise, we have everything we would need. Yeah, this one's borderline. Any third land at least plays Augur, which can maybe draw into the green source, and turn 1 Bat into Channeler, so good start. So I'll try it. Turn 1 swamp, now Deep-Cavern the draw. Yeah, should probably start there. See what they're working with. And it's mono black. They've got their own Deep-Cavern Bat, Bitter Triumph, and then the Slasher plus a Bloodletter combo. So, yeah, pretty good hand. No matter which 2-drop I take, they still have a decent follow-up. No matter which 3-drop I take, they've got another. But I don't think we can aim for Bloodletter. Bitter Triumph probably makes the most sense. And then their Deep Cavern's probably taking Essence Channeler as my only castable spell, and we need to hope to draw land. Yep. Alright, we got there. And now, do I play Augur or Blech? Blech, I can attack, our opponent would take the trade. I can attack with just the Ruin-Lurker Bat, I suppose. Still grow my team. I don't actually hate going for Augur here. Get ahead on cards. If we can find another land, I can maybe double spell Emissary with Blech, which would be even more impactful. Or we can make the argument that we want to wait on Offspring. But this seems like a good window to leverage the extra cards. And I'm not particularly interested in attacking. Now we know our opponent can play Slasher and follow it up with a Bloodletter, so I need to set myself up to block the Slasher. And a technique is interesting. So, can play Blech and then attack with, let's say, a Ruin-Lurker. Then I can trade the Augur at the very least for Slasher. And then the game goes on from there. Or I can try a Hail Mary technique, picking up an unblocked Ruin-Lurker Bat, presumably. And then hope to hit it big. If we don't, I would get punished. Not hitting the technique play. If my opponent blocks Ruin-Lurker Bat, what happens? Then I get the Essence Channeler back, and then I can go Emissary into Channeler, so that would still be fine. Alright, so we hit some goodies, including another Deep-Cavern Bat. And then Essence Channeler would not pick up any counters right away, so I might prefer an extra Augur. And then hoping they only have the one Bloodletter. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. Alright, take the Bloodletter. So I can take a hit from Slasher potentially. Just have to watch out that I don't die to my own Augur triggers. Alright, Unholy Annex without a demon yet. And surprised our opponent did not attack. Found another green source, and another black, and a Momo. Alright, so this should be pretty trivial then. Emissary into probably the Lifelinker into Blech. So first Blech, then the Lifelinker. And we get to massively pump the team. And we can get pretty aggressive. Alright, and then we've got ample blockers for a Slasher if they were to draw another Bloodletter. And there we go, awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand has a couple life gain enablers, no real payoff. Requiting Hex could be alright. 4 lands is maybe one too many. So I think we take a mulligan on this one. And this hand's a bit better. So would like to keep the duo, and then one of the 3-drops into maybe the technique. Augur pairs well with the duo, can draw extra cards. So maybe take that over Zoraline. Opponent on red aggro. So my first hand with Requiting Hex could have worked out, but yeah, I guess we got lucky to draw one anyways. So we'll keep the Hex available. Another Bastronaut. So should be fine to take out the first one here so they can't increase their speed. But yeah, opponent could have quite a few pump spells in there too. We'll have to shock myself if I want to play the duo. Still better than just taking one of starting town, when I'm probably going to have to shock myself eventually. Yeah, the black splash for the Cell Sword, most likely. And our opponent plots a Slick Shot. Okay, so next up, play Augur. At least gives us a flying blocker. But our opponent's gonna try to hit us with a one-hit KO. So, would like to find Sheltered by Ghosts or other Requiting Hex. Deep-Cavern Bat to have a look at their hand could be useful, as our opponent goes for an all-out attack. So, what makes sense here? Double blocking Bastronauts turns out poorly if they have any +3 power pump spell, pretty much. I guess I would trade Augur for Bastronaut, but they could have multiple pump spells. Blocking Slick Shot with Augur is bad if they have a pump spell that pumps Toughness. So thinking of Full Bore and the Dreadmaw's Ire comes to mind. Would be fine against the Manifest Dread pump spell, even though they get to Manifest. But the problem too is that I kind of need the Augur to draw me more cards. So I think I just take it, but there's a chance I die if I do. We'll see what happens. Maybe next turn we can Michelangelo's technique. Okay, opponent just pumps the Bastronaut. So maybe their hand's not very good. And a Hard Claw. Find a Momo and a starting town. So I could attack and technique, picking up the Lifecreed Duo most likely. Yeah, I think that's worth it. And I hope to hit some 3-drops. Found a Deep-Cavern Bat and Moseo or Emissary. Emissary is good at trading for the opponent's stuff. Moseo is better value. And opponent did indeed have Cell Sword, 2 of them in fact, and a Full Bore. So, feels like I just take the Full Bore at that point. Since I can take on both fling effects. Opponent drew Burst Lightning, that was a nice one. So now they can still Full Bore to save the Slick Shots if we try and block. Well, I could double block Slick Shot with Moseo and Augur, and then what happens? They maybe Full Bore somewhere else on the double striker. This would hit for 8, 9, and then they can finish me off with the Burn Together second main. So that doesn't work. What happens if I just block Slick Shots with Moseo? Block Hard Claw here. Once again, they can Full Bore plus Cell Sword. Probably Full Bore on the double striker, so we take 8. And then another 4, so it would fall to 1. And maybe die to my Augur. Could switch these around so the Augur dies. Or I can double block. And then I just don't take a lot of damage, but I do lose my entire board. Yeah, maybe that's still the play. Because without a full bore, the sellsword's a lot less scary. Although, of course, eventually they'll draw more pump spells. So yeah, that Burst Lightning was a good top deck. Because without full bore, this turn is a lot less impressive. Opponent's having to think about it for a while, so at least we didn't make it easy for them. And we're gonna actually save the Slick Shot here. So Augur lives, they could fling Slick Shots, and then I guess they're just hoping I lose to my own Augur here. Which is a reasonable play to make. And yeah, the Technique is our highest mana value card, so that's unfortunate. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Somehow able to draw all 3 copies of Momo, not playing the full playset. Yeah, this hand's not great. Well, we do have turn 1 Momo, I guess turn 2 Augur. It's not with Offspring. And then the Professor doesn't get a discount. If the turn 2 Augur sticks and we draw some lands off of it, it could be okay. But this is basically a mulligan to 5. A decent mulligan to 5, but I think I would rather go with a good 6. Alright, this could work. Although now we don't have any black mana. So I'll keep Third Temple Garden. Probably not as useful as the second Sheltered by Ghosts. Opponent on a green deck, so Sheltered by Ghosts should be effective at least. And there's the turn 2 Bantermole after the turn 1 Elves, so they could still cast another 2-drop. A Baloth. Okay, that's fine. So we get to shelter the Bantermole and even play an Emissary. With the Shockland we'll have Vigilance. So black mana would be useful. Another Baloth. And an Innkeeper's Talent. So the Emissary can hold off a Baloth. And we found our black mana, perfect. Play Zoraline, trigger Emissary, grow Channeler, attack, trigger again. And that's a lot for the opponent to keep up with. Another talent, 1 card remains. They need some sort of fight spell, but this looks like just a regular attack. Not gonna risk blocking the Baloth in case they have a pump spell. They did indeed have an Overprotect. That's fine. They're still dead on board. Don't even need to Sheltered by Ghosts. And we could also get the Emissary back here. Alright, sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have no green mana yet, but we do have a promising start otherwise. Can start with Momo, so next turn I can go Ruin-Lurker plus Deep-Cavern, or I can start with Ruin-Lurker and then still go Momo plus Bat. The only drawback is if I draw something, it might change my decision. But this is probably safer in the face of 1 mana removal. Also means 1 fewer damage from not pumping Momo, or I guess 2 fewer points of damage, but we gain 1 extra, which I probably care about more for now. Alright, so Momo into Deep-Cavern. And our opponent's on Grixis control, okay. So we see multiple cheap answers, and then the loot, which is a scary one, since that can set up their powerful plays. Although cover up, they'll probably be able to cast on the following turn regardless. Mathemagics only really kills me if they have 7 lands in play with the loot. So Shoot the Sheriff and Into the Royal are the scarier cards. Probably start with taking Shoot the Sheriff, because we can pretty efficiently redeploy our creatures. Alright, so can go for a 1-mana Deep-Cavern Bat, then our opponent would bounce the one in play. Now if I play Channeler, what happens? They bounce the Deep-Cavern Bat, get back Shoot the Sheriff. Next turn they can maybe shoot the bat if I go to replay it. Yeah, that seems fine. Yep. So ideally we draw a 3rd land, so I can maybe even double Deep-Cavern Bat next turn. Tapped Blood Crypt. And Emissary, not the draw we needed. So, if I Deep-Cavern Bat, our opponent will probably shoot a Deep-Cavern itself. So then I should maybe start by attacking. Even though we miss out on a damage from Momo. Might have affected their play. It is good that we have a backup bat. But yeah, opponent's also slowly working towards the cover-up. So their hand hasn't really changed. And now a Bleachbone Verge doesn't really help me. I really just need green mana. And then I gotta take the cover-up with a bat. And then hope we can get there into attacks. Okay, second loot doesn't matter. But if they draw removal for Deep-Cavern, they'll have enough mana to still cover up. So it's a pretty precarious spot, but it all boils down to this one top deck. They can also Mathemagics for a small amount to try and draw a cheaper answer. Maybe do it for X equals 2, drawing 4 cards, and then they can still maybe find a cheaper removal spell. For not having drawn a 3rd land, we are putting up a fight at least. So now they can also draw with a loot before they cast anything. We'll see if they remember to do so. Opponent does not. So yeah, they could have given themselves one more draw to maybe find the answer they were looking for, but our opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a functional hand. Turn 1 Hex, turn 2 Bat. And then hoping to set up a Michelangelo's technique. Facing black-whites, I'm fine to play this tapped. If they do play a must-answer creature, we can Hex play tapped Godless Shrine. If not, we'll find a spot for it later. And Sentry, alright, so that is a pretty scary card. Could also have a look with a bat, just to see if there's anything worth taking already. Because Sentry attacking by itself can only put a 1-drop in place, so it's not too threatening. So I'll play the Deep-Cavern Bat. See Enduring Innocence and a Dawn's Truce. Take the Innocence. And then we know they can protect their team now. Sentry attacks. Take 2. So this is currently not a race we're winning, but we should have the late game covered. Opponent taps out for May. Don't have to play a non-creature spell this turn. Could go for an Augur, could wait to play it with Offspring, and for now play a Lifecreed Duo. And then I could still Hex one of their creatures. It's not like we have a ton of non-creature spells, so I think the Sentry is more threatening than May at this point. So then, kind of like going Duo plus Hex. And I could even Hex with Blight, if we want to gain a bit of extra life back. If the Duo were to die, we can also potentially get it back later with Moseo. Alright, Seamrip can answer one of our creatures, probably the Bat. And they can still cast the Enduring Innocence. And this is exiled, so no getting it back with Moseo, sadly. So this turn, play Offspringed Augur versus Sneak Michelangelo's technique. I think we want to set up our card draw. We're not under a ton of pressure, so this lines up pretty well. And gain 2 of Lifecreed Duo. Alright. Not sure what this represents. I guess just activating the Air Temple for +1 counters. So then I would trade Darksteel for Enduring Innocence. Could still be alright. It forces them to make that play. We'll still draw 1 extra card each turn, and the Augur I can maybe eventually get back. So I'll try it. And it's going to be hard to outrace the Lifelinker otherwise. Find a Deep-Cavern Bat and another technique. Well, we can just cast a technique for 5 mana without sneaking it. I'll lose 2 from May, but we could find some more life gain enablers and payoffs at the same time. If I go for Moseo, I guess I can play it alongside Deep-Cavern Bat, and then we will get back the Augur, so that's also quite tempting here. Yeah, let's go for it. And take the Get Lost. So yeah, the Lifecreed Duo is putting in work, even though it's not dealing any damage. So we're pretty far ahead on board. And my hand's still pretty powerful as well. Our opponent can start making tokens with the Realm, which in turn draws off Enduring Innocence. So they do have their own card draw engine. Unstoppable Slasher, okay. Possible they have Delny as well to make it unblockable. Would synergize with some of their other creatures. Although not the Innocence, since that only triggers once each turn. May attacks. Now we could make a play where we chump with a creature, since we can get that creature back next turn with a life gain from Bats and the Pest, for instance. I could get back the Duo. So it's kind of free. Although I kind of want to have all my creatures in play for the technique, because having the Duo can maybe enable some other synergies. So I'm fine to just take it for now. It's only 3 damage. And then probably just gonna cast a technique. If we find Blech, we can get a lot of +1 counters. So that would be one of our better hits. And having the 2 techniques in hand also means we're less likely to randomly lose to our own Augur, since these are the most expensive cards. Find a land, and a Shelter by Ghost, which is also excellent, although we know about the Dawn's Truce. So, yeah, just gonna go for the technique here, without sneaking it. And we did find all creatures somehow. And then Blech plus, I want to say another Lifecreed Duo or a Deep-Cavern Bat. Duo would gain us a ton of life here, so that's potentially a ton of damage with all the extra +1 counters we're getting. Unless they can remove Blech in response. But then we would still get it back end of turn with Moseo. So yeah, I don't think our opponent's all too happy about this. I'm sure we're missing out on quite a few emotes. And there's the counters. And can we attack for lethal? It's definitely close. Opponent does have a blocker. But an all-out attack seems warranted, since then we also gain a life, and which in turn gives us an extra +1 counter. So yeah, this is the real payoff we were looking for. And our opponent seems very dead. Awesome. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw with a very mid-rangey hand. Deep-Cavern into a 3-drop, into Professor maybe on 4. Could be fun if it lines up. Turn 1 talents. So the Izzet decks tend to have cheap answers for Deep-Cavern. Now Ruin-Lurker, a good pickup. So we've got the 1-2-3 curve, maybe growing Blech with 2 life linkers would be nice. For now, another talent. As long as they don't remove my stuff, I'm okay with our opponent getting some prowess tokens, because we can eventually overpower them. Alright, so they've got the Stallion on 3. And then Eddymerc, they're pretty far from casting Flow Status, missing both instant and sorcery. So their hand's not actually all that threatening to me. Maybe I do take the Flow State, and then their play next turn is just tap out for Stallion. We take 5, but then Blech has kind of free reign, whereas Flow State could maybe draw them into a 1-mana answer, and then our turn looks a lot less impactful. Okay. And now I only have to take 1 damage. May still be worth it to just shock in the Temple Garden so I don't take damage from starting town. Especially if we want to play the Professor next turn. So I only gain 2, but I do get now 2 +1 counters on the entire team. So that should put us in a pretty good spot. Alright, they found a critique. X equals 0. Just to draw discard. Discards another talent, and yeah, opponent cannot deal with a 5-6 and has to scoop it up. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a functional hand. Turn 1, probably go with the bats. And then next turn we can Emissary plus Hex if needed, setting up Blech on turn 3. I see Dreamweavers, so could be blue-black ninjas or mid-range, with Kaito most likely. Alright, now we can just double 1-drop. And then we really just need 1 turn with Blech in play to massively pump our bats. So I don't actually think I want to trade, because next turn we get to grow the bats with Emissary. And then we just want to get a nice attack in. Opponent goes exploring. They are indeed blue-black. Says no to the Drowner. But yeah, this is what we wanted. Just attack with the 2 Ruin-Lurkers. Our opponent's probably going to trade for the Beavers. But then we still get to gain life with the other ones. So end result, 4 a Ruin-Lurker. Augur seems like a fine draw to get a bit more card advantage going. So if they can't answer Blech, they just die very quickly. If they can, the game goes on. Could have also tried to wait another turn on Blech and go Channeler plus Hex the 2-2. So we would have had maybe a more impactful turn. But then we also give the opponent time to maybe keep up more interaction, so... They did have the better triumph, sadly, but Augur's still a decent follow-up. A Ruin-Lurker gets in for 4. And we've got a blocker for the Siren, so they can't ninjutsu a Kaito. And then Channeler also has a starting town to gain flying if needed. Another Dreamweavers is fine. And another one. So we'll get to keep the Augur. Technique is a little painful, but definitely a good card if we can cast it. And a Deep-Cavern Bat I wouldn't be able to cast alongside the Hex. So I think this is more of a Channeler plus Hex kind of turn. We lost life from Augur, so this already has Flying and Vigilance. And our opponent's going to now Hex the Channeler. I could Hex back just to get the Blight trigger, which is interesting. I can also actually cast the Hex with Blight, which in turn triggers a Channeler, and then I get to move the counter elsewhere. So I do have quite a few options. It would basically mean blighting onto the Augur, so I can then move an extra counter onto either Emissary or Ruin-Lurker. Yeah, that seems worth it. Probably go for the Siren. Blight onto the Augur. So Channeler gets a counter, which I now get to move onto the Emissary. And these two can attack. So our opponent could now attack with both Beavers to ninjutsu a Kaito. Verge is good enough for technique, potentially. And now a Fear-Dock Core. Okay, interesting. So they might be running the Demon package. Okay, so now I guess Duo plus Bat makes some amount of sense. See what they're working with. Strategic Betrayal and Drowner. So Betrayal's not super impactful, but maybe still more annoying than the Drowner here. It's a close call. Expecting one Beavers to maybe already chump. And yeah, her opponent's just too far behind here. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw with a reasonable hand, although it's a little awkward in that we don't actually have any life gain enablers, only a bunch of payoffs. So we might struggle to get the Channeler and Blech going. We also don't actually have any flyers for Momo. So as far as hands go that have both lands and spells and a decent curve, this is actually one of our worst ones. It doesn't take much to flip this around, just any life gain creature really. So I think I still try it. Alright, the Lifecreed Duo fits that description. So start with Momo. Could have also just played a tap land on 1 and then turn 2 gone Momo plus Duo, since it would immediately get the discount. And now if they have a removal spell, they can maybe use it. The upside is that we maybe have more options by playing the Momo on turn 1. Voice of Victory, so there's some sort of tempo deck or maybe token aggro deck. So what's next? Could also play Moseo for 2 mana now. Not that I'm necessarily planning on getting anything back from the graveyard anytime soon. The token can maybe help gain life as well. Playing the Duo does not use up all my mana, although we can play a tap land. I think it's still maybe just Essence Channeler. And then next turn Duo into Channeler makes sense. Upside of Duo is that we can immediately curve into Blech. But building up our board first could have its advantages. Opponent actually eroding our creature, so that gives us a land at least. And another voice. Okay, so far I don't know what their second color is. But now, if I can gain 2 life, I can get back the Channeler, so going Duo into Moseo actually works out quite well. Hit you for 3. End of turn, get back Channeler. And now our board is primed for Blech to take over. Alright, it is blue-white. So they could have some counter spells here. But they're pretty far behind on board. I guess an Enduring Curiosity would hit pretty hard because of all these tokens. But we get to eat a voice. Block a token. And then I guess take the rest. Opponent will have a Curiosity, but then they would be tapped out. And then does Blech just win the game? Should be pretty close to it. Yep, there it is. So your opponent draws 4. But we've got them right where we want them. And a Deep-Cavern Bat is excellent as well, since that'll give us another life gain trigger. Channeler gains Flying and Vigilance for what it's worth. And this doesn't matter since they're dead. Get another life gain trigger when the pest attacks. So yeah, Moseo did a ton of work for us. Awesome. Alright, and that'll do it. Awesome. Well, Blech has been an amazing addition for the Bat archetype, and the Green Splash has also allowed a few other interesting additions, like the Emissary at 1, and then of course the Michelangelo's technique has also been quite impressive as a way to find Blech in the first place. So yeah, overall, the deck has a lot going for it. In the best of 1 configuration right now, it is quite weak to graveyard combo decks, so that's certainly an area where we might need some help out of the sideboard if we were to play best of 3, or we could try to fit in some sort of main deck graveyard hate in the form of Strategic Betrayal, for instance, but then of course we would have to cut some other important cards, so can't win them all, and we will have some bad matchups like the graveyard combo decks, or maybe the Jeskai artifact deck is also a tough one, since the Starcage is an effective sweeper against us. So we will have some tougher matchups out there, but in general I've been having a lot of fun gaining life with my Bat. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.